Hey friends, this is Dolany TV. Glad to have you aboard this morning as we get set up to discuss just a couple of key things I want to talk about before we get too far on with our new week. I know obviously it's Sunday. I know that there's been a whole bunch to discuss this first week into free agency. Obviously it's now July 7th, so we're wrapping it up here today. And the Oilers still appear as if they've got moves to make. The Oilers still appear as though they're not quite content with this roster. And that's a good sign for us Edmonton Oilers fans. So I want to peek into that a little bit, peek into what's going on behind the curtain, potentially with another player on the back end. And then we'll go from there. So if you're new to the channel, friends, consider hitting that subscribe button. All right, I'm going to tell you, we are going to have a long summer here on the channel of a lot of content. Normally by now I've posted 2 videos after July 1st, between the 2nd and the 7th. Instead, here we are. This is like video number 6. So we're rolling along. What do we know though? Well, we know rumors continue to fly, and I could sit here and track down every single little piece and post that says the Oilers are still looking to make one more move. And I think it's pretty obvious right now that the Oilers are looking to upgrade the defense at least once more before the start of the season or at some point during the season. While the GM search continues, I think Jeff Jackson won't be too shy if he gets the right deal to upgrade on that top 4 right-hand defenseman slot that Cody Ceci has occupied for the past several seasons. So looking at that, right, I think that immediately names the last tradable name on the Edmonton Oilers roster, that being Cody Ceci. You look at how it lines up. We're pretty comfortable running Philip Broberg on his offside and obviously running him in the top 4 if we have to. So it's either you upgrade Cody Ceci for a better defenseman, or else you just trade him off for cap space. You allow Troy Stecher and Josh Brown to rotate in and fill out with Brett Kulak, which saves you some cap space in and of itself. And then you just eventually upgrade at the trade deadline. That seems, to me, quite honestly, looking at what the Oilers have done this offseason, that seems like the easiest, simplest thing to do is just kind of trade Cody Ceci, similar you did for Ryan McLeod, for a prospect, a pick, something that you can get for him, and then bang, bring in, of course, Stecher and Brown, rotate them out, give them 40 games each. I really don't care. But the Oilers' defense with this offense is good enough up until the trade deadline, A, to avoid what happened last year, B, to do what they did as the year went on, and of course, kind of maybe even outdo it if you're willing to have that conversation with me on a Sunday morning. So hopefully for the Oilers, whatever comes next, whichever trade is next, if there is a trade that is next, it is of course on the defense to kind of settle up that logjam a bit, right? I don't think the Oilers necessarily signed Josh Brown to a 3-year, $1 million deal to be in Bakersfield. Yes, it's buriable. Sure. Same with Troy Stecher. But I think the biggest thing here for both those guys is they signed on to be the 6-7 or else the 7 themselves. So you're looking at it, Cody Ceci's making the money he is, and of course everybody kind of having the war words during the playoffs about that situation. Well, it's an easy thing that Jeff Jackson fixed pretty quickly with Ryan McLeod. It took 2 days from the time we started looking at the lineup and saying, man, Ryan McLeod's really the odd man out here, and bang, he was traded with another prospect for Matthew Savoy, who will see NHL time not this year, probably next year, on the wing, up in the top 9, one might assume. So yeah, that's where we continue to see things roll here, friends, is the rumors aren't going to go away, which is nice because we actually have something to talk about. I think if you're looking at it just mathematically, Cody Ceci is the last tradable piece for the Edmonton Oilers in the roster right now. So you look at that, add that all up, it looks really good when you start talking about, okay, we could have some movement here. That said, I caution you, it may very well take to the NHL trade deadline for that trade to happen. So that's just where I'm sitting on that one. As we also roll along on the defensive side of things today, Evan Bouchard, I've seen multiple posts about this. I've seen multiple things. I really don't care what anyone else is saying about this. At the end of the day, what I care about is how I feel when it comes to what's going on with Evan Bouchard and a potential contract extension. And how I feel is a little conflicted because you have to base it on a prior established contract in the Oilers organization, that being Darnell Nurse's. Albeit, I think a lot of folks, I've read a lot of comments here these playoffs saying if Darnell Nurse was a $4.5 million defenseman, I've got no issue with him. So if I'm basing Evan Bouchard's contract, well, Bouchard's double the offensive player that Nurse is, points-wise, every year. And by the way, he holds water just as, treads water, I think. The same as Darnell Nurse does in his defensive zone, right? Both players capable of playing good defense, but you don't always get it. Well, when you look at that, it's like, wow, Bouchard's double the offensive player, so I think that automatically makes him a $10 million defenseman, which has been the discussion point here for everybody this past week. Well, when you look at that and you're saying, man, Evan Bouchard's going to be $10 million, Darnell Nurse is going to be 9.25, that's a lot of money to be spending on two guys that aren't even playing on the same pairing. Well, again, I don't know what you're supposed to do. And I do not think for a second that the Oilers should trade Evan Bouchard. I'm sorry. You've got a generational point-scoring defenseman, right? This is where it is. And it just so happens there's several of them in the NHL right now. This is the silly part about it, right? This isn't a situation where defensive scoring's just gone crazy and everybody's good, because that would mean our other defensemen are chipping in tons of points too outside of Ekholm. But no, it's absolutely insane to think you've got Bouchard, you've got Makar, you've got Quinn Hughes, you've got Luke Hughes, you got a guy like Lane Hudson coming into the NHL as well. You got like guys all across the NHL that are starting to go out. Roman Josi as well. There's a ton of guys starting to pile up points in the premium numbers. And for Evan Bouchard, he finished 5th in Norris voting. So it's kind of hard to say at that point that, that Bouchard doesn't deserve a $10 million contract, right? And it's based on what's already established in the Oilers organization with Darnell Nurse. It's based on what's established out there across the NHL. It's based on cap inflation over the past 3 years since those last few deals were signed. It's based on point production. It's based on everything. The only issue is, how do you fit it? And again, we're talking about trading away Cody Ceci, running Troy Stetcher and Josh Brown. But again, I guess if you're going to do a playoff run every year, you just have to acquire some $4 million defenseman, get double retention, so he's only $1 million against the cap the rest of the year. And away you go, and you get this nice upgraded piece for your defense for each of the next several playoff runs. Okay, fair, we can do it. But you're going to have a level of masterclass off seasons year after year after year, like Jeff Jackson has had through this past week and a half, going from just before the draft to right now. Because if you don't, quite honestly, you're not going to be able to manage all these big name, big title contracts, big money contracts that are about to be flying around in the Oilers sphere, right? You've got Bouchard, you've got Draisaitl, you've got McDavid, you'll have Skinner coming up, it's about to get interesting, and we really got to ride the best out of this season, because whatever the Oilers decide to do after that, it could get a little messy, I guess would be the word. So, friends, I'll leave you with that. Those are two little things I just wanted to discuss. Like I said, I've seen it everywhere. I really don't care what the news per se is, but that's the talk, and that is where we will go from here into Monday tomorrow. Dolphiny TV, up on out of here.